All right, today we are talking about the 15th Amendment. This is Friday, and the 15th Amendment was passed and fully ratified by March 30th of 1870, okay? And you might wonder, what's the 15th about anyway? We know that the 13th was about getting rid of slavery. We know that the 14th was about the idea of extending citizenship to African Americans. So what exactly is the 15th, you might wonder? Let's go take a look. So with the 15th, it's talking about the right to vote, okay? So voting is the big deal with the 15th Amendment, not denied by race. Now, voting was mentioned in the 14th Amendment that states could be penalized if they did not allow people to vote. However, the 15th Amendment is the one that really firms it up that African Americans have the right to vote. Okay? Now, what it's talking about here is that the rights of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state, right? So trying to get those southern states to comply on account of race, color, or if they were ever a slave before, right? That condition of servitude. Section 2 is talking about Congress has the power to enforce this through writing more laws, all right? So they can write more laws about it to enforce it. This also means that Congress, in terms of their power is on the rise over the states, so that is significant. All right? Now, next thing that we're going to take a look at here is what the 15th Amendment did not cover or address. You can practically see the smoke coming out of these ladies' ears because the 15th Amendment did not include equality for women. That would not come until much later when the 19th Amendment is passed in 1920. Women didn't have the right to vote in the United States until 1920. Pretty crazy, right? Now, this guy here, you know him as Grant. Okay, Ulysses S. Grant, Lieutenant General of the Union forces during the Civil War, right? And what does he say to the 15th Amendment? He says, pass. And he's so happy that it did, all right? So he is definitely on the Republican side. He was a Republican himself, you know. Now, another thing. We do have some states that resist ratification. And remember, in order for an amendment to be fully in effect and made part of the Constitution, not only do 2/3 of Congress have to pass it, but 3/4 of all state legislatures also have to ratify it in order for it to be official. So Kentucky says no. Remember, they're a border state, so that's their excuse, right? Not a good one. Delaware says no. They were also a border state. Oregon says no. And we're like, what? What is up with Oregon? What's their problem? California also says no. What is the deal with these people anyway? All right, but eventually 3/4 of states do ratify it, and part of that is because a lot of southern states had still not been seated in Congress, and that was the way to get them to ratify not only the 15th but the 14th Amendment, is to say, hey, if you don't ratify these two amendments, no Congress for you. All right, moving on. So again, remember, 15th Amendment is all about African Americans being allowed to vote, okay? And there's supposed to be a much more open way to do it without too many restrictions, right? Now, a good thing that came about because of the 15th Amendment, you got people like this guy, Hiram Revels, who is the first African American senator in U.S. Congress. Pretty amazing, right? And then you got all these other guys who also served in Congress in the House of Representatives between 1870 and 1875. Pretty amazing, right? So that's progress, except you still got groups like these clowns who are looking to intimidate. So you got the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, that is going around terrorizing African Americans to try to keep them from exercising their right to vote. You can see in this picture here, this is a picture of a lynching that is about to take place, all right? So tactics like this, domestic terrorism, was often used to try to keep African Americans from exercising their right. Now, another couple of things that you should know about is that the availability of polling places. If there aren't polling places that are close by, it can be hard for voters to exercise their rights, right? That's something that still is kind of an issue today in certain places. Another thing that was done is different literacy tests were put in. They were implemented as a way to say, hey, are you actually going to be a decent voter? I don't know. So this is one of the restrictions that was added, or one of the qualifications, they called it, okay? Are you qualified to vote? Are you literate? Can you pay a poll tax, which was a certain amount that you were asked to pay in order to vote? It all sounds ridiculous now, right? But these are things that were actually done. There was also selective voter registration to say, hey, we'll go sign up this group of people, but we will definitely avoid that neighborhood or that street because we don't want those people signing up. Okay? So just some things to think about. Now, really, all is not well until 1965. Now, that is nearly 100 years later. That is insane, right? Craziness. But Lyndon Johnson, who is this guy right here? Okay, he's the president after JFK. He is about to shake hands. Oh, that's a major no-no today. But anyway, they're shaking hands. This is Martin Luther King right here. And this is to get rid of restrictions on voting that were meant to disenfranchise or to keep African Americans from exercising their right to vote. So this was huge, the Voting Rights Act in 1965. But still, 100 years later? Wow. Some things today that are still going on that people debate about is requiring ID. Should voters have to show some form of identification at the polls? Some people say yes, so there's no voter fraud. Other people say, this keeps people from being able to exercise their right to vote. Some states, however, 14 states, use other methods to identify voters, including things like looking at their signature and stuff. All right? Now, here's something else to think about. This is an example of what's known as gerrymandering, which is the drawing of districting lines to favor one political party or another. If you notice in this picture right here, this shows that out of 50 precincts, maybe 60% of them vote blue, right? Maybe they vote Democrat, and 40% vote red. They might vote Republican. Well, depending on how you split it up, blue might win or red might win. It's just something to think about. Is the way that the lines are drawn, is it truly fair? I don't know. This looks a little wonky to me, but if you ever look at an election map, wow, there's a lot of gerrymandering that goes on to favor one party or another. Now, remember, 15th Amendment, it is all about that right to vote. So your assignment today, you are back in that doc in Google Classroom. You must watch this video first, all right? Please, over here, you write a really good summary of what did the video talk about. Just the facts. What did it share about the history of voting in the United States and how the 15th Amendment plays into that? Then write your response. What is your thinking about all of this? Then over here, second part, you're looking at the full text of the amendment. Section 1, please paraphrase it. Write it in your own words over here. Section 2, you know what this is all about. Can Congress write laws to enforce it? Yep, they can, okay? Please go ahead and write your paraphrase over here. And then over in this part, again, you are finding images that relate and briefly explain how those go along with the 15th Amendment, how they illustrate them, if you will. And then for today, one change, you've got a final question. So you're thinking about the Reconstruction Amendments. What did they each get right? What parts are controversial or left open? Too many loopholes. Reflect on these 3 amendments and the impact they've had on our country then and now. Please support your thinking. You can expand this box as much as you need to. Thanks so much, guys. Don't forget to hit the turn in button before 11:59 tonight. Goodbye.